Imagine a building that not only houses the main military secrets of one of the world's greatest powers, but also symbolizes strength, resilience, and innovation. This is the Pentagon, a building whose history begins in the rush to win the Second World War and transforms into a modern fortress capable of withstanding external attacks and protecting all that is most valuable to the U.S. Armed Forces. But what makes the Pentagon one of the most secure buildings in the world? How does it balance history, symbolism, and cutting-edge technology on its 5 unmistakable sides? Stay with me until the end to discover all the secrets that make this structure unique on the planet. History and context of construction. The Pentagon's history begins at the end of the First World War, when the United States Department of Defense began to grow exponentially in line with the war effort. When World War II began, this growth reached a critical level, leading to organizational chaos. It was then that Brehon B. Somerville, head of logistics, proposed the construction of a large building to centralize military operations. The original construction site was in Arlington Farms, a space surrounded by 5 roads. It was this configuration that inspired the pentagonal shape. The project was later moved near the Potomac River, but the unique design was retained, a decision supported by President Franklin D. Roosevelt himself, who liked the concept and saw it as an opportunity to symbolize the union of the military branches. The Pentagon's economic impact. The Pentagon is not only a center of military operations, but also a significant economic force in the Washington, D.C. area. It employs more than 26,000 people directly, including civilians and military personnel. In addition, the contracts and operations that pass through the Pentagon generate billions of dollars in annual economic activity, impacting suppliers and service providers across the country. The project's construction and challenges. In 1941, under the leadership of architect George Bergstrom and engineer Leslie Groves, construction began. The Pentagon was built in record time, less than 2 years, despite the difficulties of war, such as shortages of materials and labor. Curiously, to save steel, the building was designed without elevators, with only stairs and ramps connecting its 5 floors. Although the initial focus was on speed, some decisions made during construction would prove to be incredibly practical. For example, the pentagonal design allows anyone to walk between 2 points in the building in a maximum of 7 minutes. Today, it houses intuitively organized corridors, including Corridor 0, which encircles the entire structure and facilitates navigation. Additional architectural curiosities. Despite being widely known as an office building, the Pentagon also has elements that set it apart from other constructions. For example, it has a large internal courtyard that is often called the Ground Zero Cafe, an ironic nickname because it is considered the most protected point in the building. In addition, there are more than 280 toilets in the building, a decision designed to address racial segregation at the time of construction. Although today this is just a historical curiosity. Symbolism of the pentagonal shape. But why a pentagon? At first, the choice was practical, due to the geographical limitations of the original site. However, when the project changed, the shape became more of a symbol than a necessity. It represents the union of the 5 main armed forces: the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, and National Guard, as well as the newly created Department of Defense. For Roosevelt, the format also had a unique visual appeal, highlighting the Pentagon as an architectural icon. Beginning of security, 1990s and renovation. Although it was built with a focus on efficiency and speed, security only became a priority decades later. In the 1990s, the Pentagon faced an asbestos crisis, a toxic material widely used in construction. This led to a massive renovation project, which ended up creating an opportunity to implement experimental anti-terrorism security measures. The highlight of this renovation was the installation of structural reinforcements, including layers of Kevlar between the walls and blast-resistant glass. These upgrades made the Pentagon more secure, especially in the so-called Wedge 1, the part of the building that would be put to the test in 2001. September 11th, the unexpected test. On September 11th, 2001, the Pentagon was hit by American Airlines Flight 77. Luckily, the impact occurred exactly on Wedge 1, which had received the security upgrades. The reinforced walls and blast-resistant glass prevented the damage from being even greater. Even under such a devastating attack, the Pentagon remained standing, symbolizing resilience in the face of tragedy. The Phoenix Project and security reforms. After the 9/11 attack, the Department of Defense began Project Phoenix, a massive initiative to rebuild and reinforce not only the damaged areas, but the entire building and its surroundings. The aim was to transform the Pentagon into a modern fortress with enhanced security in every respect. One of the biggest concerns was underground access. A subway station leading directly to the building was closed, ensuring that all access to the Pentagon passed through above-ground controls. Another critical vulnerability was Route 110, an unrestricted highway that passed dangerously close to the building. To solve this, the highway was rerouted and the space around the Pentagon was transformed into a secure camp with strict checkpoints. The Pentagon as an emergency response center. In addition to its military functions, the Pentagon also serves as a response center for national and international emergencies. During crises such as natural disasters or cyber attacks, it coordinates logistical and support operations in collaboration with other government agencies. This capability demonstrates the breadth of the Pentagon's role, going far beyond simple military defense. Counter-terrorism security, from the ground to the sky. In addition to structural reinforcement, external security measures were implemented to protect the building from ground and air attacks. Physical barriers, known as ram structures, were installed to prevent unauthorized vehicles from getting close to the building. Advanced surveillance systems, including security cameras and sensors, constantly monitor the surrounding area. But Pentagon security is not limited to the ground. The airspace around Washington, D.C. is protected by the National Capital Region Integrated Air Defense System. Radars and sensors monitor every aircraft that enters the area. If an unauthorized aircraft is detected, pilots receive a visual warning with lasers to leave the restricted zone. If they ignore the warning, more direct measures, such as interception by fighter jets, are taken. The Pentagon's communications network. A little-known detail is that the Pentagon has one of the most advanced and secure communications networks in the world. Since the 1980s, it has used networks protected by state-of-the-art encryption to ensure that sensitive information remains inaccessible to external agents. Its IT infrastructure is constantly updated to prevent cyber attacks, which have become a growing threat on the global stage. The remote delivery facility, protecting the inside. The Pentagon also protects itself against internal threats, such as suspicious packages. All items sent to the building first pass through the Pentagon's remote delivery facility, a huge structure dedicated to sorting mail and cargo. This facility was built as part of Project Phoenix and is equipped with X-ray scanners, metal detectors, and K-9 teams trained to identify explosives. Only after passing these rigorous checks are the packages sent inside the building. The Pentagon's sustainability. Although its construction dates back to the 1940s, the Pentagon has also adopted modern sustainability practices. After the Phoenix Project renovations, initiatives were implemented to reduce the building's energy consumption and environmental impact. The Pentagon is supplied with energy from renewable sources for part of its operations, and energy efficiency projects such as LED lighting and more efficient heating and cooling systems have been incorporated over the years. The Pentagon Police and other internal security systems. In addition to external measures, the Pentagon has its own police force, the Pentagon Force Protection Agency, PFPA. This team is highly trained and is always ready to respond to emergencies and protect the facilities. The building's internal security also includes carefully monitored and organized corridors, allowing any incident to be quickly controlled. The Pentagon today, symbol of resilience and power. Today, the Pentagon is more than an administrative building. It is a symbol of resilience and strength. Representing the union of the military branches of the United States, it continues to play a central role in national defense. Its strategic location, reinforced infrastructure, and unbeatable security make it not only a center of operations, but also an icon of power and determination. Although many see it as just a building, the Pentagon is actually the beating heart of U.S. military operations. And behind its seemingly ordinary facade lies one of the most protected and secure structures in the world. A veritable fortress in modern times. Now that you know all the fascinating details about the Pentagon, how about sharing this knowledge with more people? Leave a like to support our work and help the video reach more people. Comment below on what impressed you the most. Was it the history behind the format, the security measures, or the incredible capacity for internal organization? I read and respond to all comments. And of course, if you know someone who would love to know more about this symbol of strength and innovation, send them this video. Let's spread curiosity and knowledge together. See you next time.